In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Thursday, November 10th, and this is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. We are still down one man, Steve. Still down one man.
Man, it is getting brutal.
It is getting brutal. Yeah.
I'm so sad without Sal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kev. I love you.
It hurts.
But I'm so sad without Sal.
It hurts a little. It does. I'm not going to lie.
You haven't been gone away. You haven't been away long enough for me to really start to miss you like Sal has been.
Yeah, this has been we're on episode 3 now without him, and it's tough. I don't find it as easy to berate you or argue with you. So for me, who loves to argue, I think I'm having trouble with this.
Hey man, I didn't ask you to take it easy on me, all right? You go ahead and you let me have it if I deserve it, or if you got something to say.
All right, well, that's true. It's usually more just I completely disagree with Sal on a regular basis. So, I mean,
that is very true.
Yeah.
We've missed that contention here on the podcast the last few episodes.
The stress makes it nice, I think. It's a good
I agree.
It's a good working environment.
Yeah, you thrive under those types
I
of
do.
scenarios.
I'm much better when I'm challenged. So, so for those of you listening who also miss Sal, this show's probably going to suck because, like I said, I'm not good when I'm not challenged, and Steve just doesn't challenge me.
Sorry.
So we are. It is a Thursday show. There is football currently on. It's been a real barn burner.
Yeah.
I think it's technically still called football.
Yeah, it's been a bit rough. So luckily we don't have to talk about this one much.
No, we don't. For those of you interested, right now as we're watching this, the Cleveland Browns are actually winning 7-3 over the Baltimore Ravens. For those of you who were expecting the Ravens to come out firing, it's not happening.
No, but remember the last time these two teams met, the Browns were up, I believe, 20-0 before the Ravens ended up coming back and winning that game. So after halftime, I expect a few adjustments and things to change there.
Excellent. Yes. And for those of you who are looking for the weekly Steve update, he did do a league video today. It was not chipper, but it was not depressing. So good for you, Steve.
Thanks. I feel like I'm at one with myself and with this season and what it has done to me. I feel like I've come through a stronger person and just going to keep on trucking for the rest of the few weeks. I'm not out of it yet.
In all honesty, are you actually fearing relegation at this point or no?
I mean, I can't say it's not on my mind, but I think that the rest of the season is shaping up pretty nice, and I've decided not to worry about it.
So the news over the last 2 days about Todd Gurley, did that hurt a little?
Yeah, that sucks. I'm a curse for running backs. All the running backs I've acquired this season have all got hurt. All the people that I've traded away have all started doing good. And so Eddie Lacy, Todd Gurley, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley, please play. Please play this week, Todd Gurley.
Okay. I mean, look, everyone thought yesterday when he didn't practice that it was just a rest day, and then he came out today that he didn't practice again, and that makes you a little nervous. Absolutely. Yeah.
A little panicked.
I went and grabbed Benny Cunningham in a couple of places. In fact, when I heard the news yesterday that he didn't practice, the news came out late, I went to go grab him, and of course our missing friend Sal had already grabbed him, which is ridiculous. He is so quick to the waiver wire. It's unbelievable.
It is. But you know who he dropped? Niall Davis.
Yeah,
so he's got like a rotating bottom feeder on his roster that he can just dump at a moment's notice. Whereas, like, I actually got some people on my team where I have to think about dropping them. So
and yet you're
yeah.
1-8, and he's what, 8-1?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
go figure.
How does that work?
Go
Oh
figure.
God. Maybe I need to stop thinking so hard
Yeah,
and just
maybe you're
start
thinking
dropping
about
people.
this too much. Just drop people and get it over with. If you want to drop, Todd Gurley, I please talk to me before you do so.
I dropped Wendell Smallwood today. You can go ahead and grab him.
That's great. Lovely. So we got some games coming up this weekend. There are actually a decent amount of interesting games on the slate for the weekend. I'm kind of excited about this particular weekend because I feel like it presents a lot of options. We're week 10. There's a lot going on in the NFL season as far as people jockeying for position and to get ready for the playoffs or get into the playoffs. So, most of the teams have had their bye weeks at this point. We still have bye weeks through another 4 weeks, I guess. The NFL is so stupid.
Well, technically 3 because there's no one on bye week 12.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Stupid. Just dumb. But anyway, but a lot of the teams have had their byes already. So we're mostly through that. So your rosters should be taking shape. You should be getting ready for the playoff push actually, you're still only 2 games out, Steve. I said it before. I'll say it again. It could happen.
Crazier things haven't happened yet.
Right.
But they are about to.
But they certainly could. So
yep.
We're going to go through all of the games for Sunday and Sunday night and Monday. And we're going to talk about who you need to, what's going on with each game and who you need to get in your lineup. So without further ado, Steve, I think we should take it away.
All right. Well, we are going to start, of course, with the 1:00 games, and we will start with Chicago at Tampa Bay. I think that there are just going to be a ton of points scored in this game, but I'm worried, I guess, a little bit if we're ready to start trusting Alshon Jeffrey again. I know I am. I think it's mostly because of his touchdown total. He only has 1 touchdown that he scored before the bye week against Minnesota. And so I think that number is probably going to end the season closer to 7. So I think he's going to probably go through a huge stretch where he's scoring constantly, or he has a few big games where he finds the end zone multiple times. So with the amount of points you expect to be scored, you're starting these guys no matter what. Kev, I would ask you how you feel about Jordan Howard going into this game with the questions surrounding the Chicago running backs, knowing that Tampa Bay in the last 5 weeks, 5th worst against running backs. They've given up 3 rushing touchdowns and have averaged allowing over 100 yards a game. So are you trusting Jordan Howard, or are you worried about Jeremy Langford anymore?
I don't know that I'm worried about Langford. I actually am starting him in Falafel this week just because that's how bad it's gotten for me. But I'm not worried about him if I'm a Jordan Howard owner, because I think Jordan Howard has earned the respect of the team, and I think that he's going to be the guy. As you mentioned, Tampa Bay is not good against the run. 26 overall for fantasy points against running backs with an average of 21.9 per game this season alone. So I think even if you see Langford a little bit in this one, you're probably still going to be okay, with Howard, because he's just, he's that type of guy, and the Buccaneers are really just that bad. They give up 426 yards through the air. That's 27th in the league to running backs, and 2 touchdowns in the air. So I could see Jordan Howard having a decent pass-catching day, to be quite honest with you. That's where I would look to see him. I think you could actually see Kadeem Carey get in the mix here too. Not that I think it's going to be a 3-headed monster. Like I said, I think you're going to see Howard with the majority of them. But for those of us in 16-team leagues who are looking to take a flyer on someone because of LaShawn McCoy being on a bye week, you might get lucky enough to have a Langford fall into the end zone, or a Carey get a couple of catches as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. On the other side of the ball, it looks like it's going to be Peyton Barber starting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with all the injuries there. Although it did come out today that Doug Martin has been practicing and has felt good, so there is a slight chance that he could come back. But are you trusting either one of these guys, knowing that the Chicago Bears in the last 4 games, they're actually the best against the run against fantasy running backs, have only given up 1 touchdown, have given up around 50 yards a game in those 4 games. So are you starting either Tampa Bay running back?
Yes.
Are you starting them in a 10 to 12 team league?
No, probably not. If I can avoid them at all, I will. I am starting Peyton Barber in Falafel again because it has gotten that bad. So, look, but no, I think that you have to be careful. The Bears, third best in the league on the season for fantasy points against them by a running back. They're only giving up 13.7 points per game. They have not given up a receiving touchdown to a running back the entire season. They've only given up 5 on the ground, under 8 or just over 800 yards for the season to running backs. So I'm not starting any of these guys. For one, I think if for some reason they rush Doug Martin back, and not that they rush him back. I mean, he's been out since week 2, so it's not like they're rushing him. But if he just started practicing this week, I would hope they'd give him another week. But if for some reason they do bring him back, he's going to be limited, right? I mean, he's definitely not getting a full workload, and so you're going to see Peyton Barber in this one. Hopefully, for my sake, in Falafel, you see him a lot, but I don't think that's going to happen either. I think it'll be a pure split. To be quite honest with you, is what I expect. I think that you'll see Barber definitely get the short yardage work, so he might have a better shot at a touchdown. So that's where I would lean, but I don't think either of them are really usable against a tough defense to begin with.
Yep, I would agree there. I would be fading the Tampa Bay running backs this week.
Absolutely.
You have anything else to add to this game before we move on?
I would say that the Chicago wide receivers, you may want to get those guys in. Tampa Bay is absolutely terrible against wide receivers, giving up 28.6 points per game this season. They've given up 12 touchdowns to wide receivers this season. Just if Alshon Jeffrey is going to have a day, this is going to be it. I actually made a trade in another league this week. I traded Alshon Jeffrey for Brandon Cooks, mostly looking at the long-term value of Cooks there, but because I think it's going to screw me this week. Obviously, Cook's going up against Denver. Meanwhile, Alshon Jeffrey is the worst wide receiver defense in the league. So what do you think, Steve? I mean, we've talked. You and I have lamented Alshon Jeffrey a lot together this season. Are you excited about this matchup? You must be.
Yeah, absolutely. For all the reasons that you just mentioned, I'm starting him everywhere that I have him, and I'm finally excited that he's in my lineup. I'm not dreading it anymore. I'm not worried. I feel like he's going to at least get the volume, at least get targets, at least get Jay Cutler looking his way when he's in the end zone. So, yeah, I'm absolutely rolling him out there. And whoever else is, like you said, get the wide receivers. You get Adam Humphries in there, get Cameron Brate. I think this is going to be one of the higher scoring games of the weekend. So I think you're getting as many players as you can from Chicago in there, and then getting those receivers from Tampa in there as well.
So what about Jay Cutler? I'm looking at the Falafel ranks right now, which is just you and I this week. Obviously, Sal couldn't even mail in his rankings.
He has taken a vacation to the extreme.
He has. He's just a lazy bastard, I think, is really what it boils down to. But sorry, Sal, I miss you, buddy.
I didn't say that.
I miss you, buddy. But we have Jay Cutler at 11. Obviously, it's skewed a little bit, so I'll just go with the individual numbers. I have him at 8. You have him at 15. So you're a little lower on him. You don't think he's a must start in a 12-team league. I do. What's your reasoning there? Do you not love this matchup, or do you just hate Jay Cutler that much?
I don't hate anybody,
Well,
and I
don't
do
mean
like
personally.
the matchup.
I mean,
I do like the matchup. It's just that I think on top of the production, there's going to be the mistakes because it's Jay Cutler. So you can almost bet that there's going to be at least one interception, maybe 2. And if the Buccaneers get up on the Bears and force them to throw a lot, you could see 3 interceptions. And so just having that, I just felt there were a few better options. And knowing that the mistakes are always there with Jay Cutler. And even though it is a great matchup, that does not mean that Jay Cutler is going to exploit it. And there are just too many reasons not to put him higher, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the numbers for Tampa Bay. They're giving up a touchdown, a passing touchdown, every 6.3% of their attempts. That's ridiculously high. It's 2% higher than the league average. They're also only intercepting passes 1.6% per attempt. Or of attempts, which is under the league average of 2.0. So they're not intercepting passes and they're giving up a lot of touchdowns. I like Jay Cutler this week. I like Cameron Meredith this week. I like Zach Miller this week. I like anyone who can catch a pass in Chicago this week. Eddie Royal, like you said, will probably come out and have a huge game and get injured at the end of the game and then be done for 3 weeks.
Yep, absolutely. So, take it to the bank.
Absolutely. Agreed there.
All right, we are going to move on to the Falcons at the Eagles. For some reason, as a kid, I always loved this game because it was the bird game. The Falcons and the Eagles playing each other. I don't know why.
The bird game?
Yeah, it was a bird game.
Oh, so you started early with the fantasy analysis.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I'm going to call this bird game. Here I am, 22 years later. Anyway.
Still calling it the Birds.
That's right. So I'm a big Jordan Matthews fan this week, and that is for a few reasons. Philly, I think, is going to have to throw the ball to keep up. I know it came out this week that Doug Peterson wants Carson Wentz to throw the ball less. That is unfortunate. I don't think that is going to be in the game plan this week. I think they're going to have to, keep up with the Atlanta offense. So I think that the trying to make him throw less not going to be an option. Number two, other than a dud in Week 7 against Minnesota, Jordan Matthews has scored no less than 8.5 points in half PPR scoring, so he's got a very solid floor. And number 3, Desmond Trufant is probably going to be out of this game. He is Atlanta's best cornerback. He's dealing with a shoulder injury that he sustained at the end of their last game. So I think that he is primed to have a pretty nice Sunday. And on the Falcons side of the ball,
whoa, you think you like him?
Have
you seen the rankings?
You love him.
I love Jordan Matthews this week.
You want to marry him.
I don't know. I don't know about that. That's awkward.
If you weren't already married, of course.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't need any flack from my wife here on this one.
That's right. Sorry, HR.
Do you know who's almost as bad at defending receivers as Tampa Bay?
Atlanta?
Yeah. 28.2 points per game to receivers, 14 touchdowns. They've actually given up more touchdowns than Tampa Bay has, and overall, just atrocious. They give up a touchdown every 6% of their on 6% of their passes as well, so they're way above the league average as well. So I love me some Jordan Matthews in this one.
Is there any running back that you'd start other than Darren Sproles this week?
Is there any running back that gets
on the
touches for the Eagles at this point? Kenyon Barner's probably going to get in the end zone again and screw everyone. So maybe you spot start him.
Yeah, he could.
No, I mean, look, Ryan Matthews, the most efficient running back in the history of the game, will get 3 touches, one of which will be a 2-yard touchdown. But other than that, no. I mean, I don't think you can trust anyone in this offense anymore. As far as running backs, I should say, I don't see how you can see what's been going on with Ryan Matthews and think to yourself, that I want to get some of that. I need to get that in my lineup. He may score, but the 1 week that he doesn't score, it's going to be a half a point game for you sitting in your lineup, and you definitely don't want that.
No, not typically good numbers there. On the Falcons side of the ball, is there anyone you're not starting? Because this offense is so good, I don't understand how you could really hesitate to start anyone, even including Austin Hooper, who's going to be filling in for Jacob Tammany, who's already been ruled out for Week 10. So make a case to sit a Falcon.
Yeah, very hard to make a case against the Falcons given how ridiculous their offense has been. I mean, the Eagles are 27th in passing yards against them with only giving up 1,747 yards through the air. So there's that. I mean, they've been pretty good, but still, I mean, Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, and company have been phenomenal. I probably wouldn't start Gabriel this week, particularly if Tevin Coleman starts. Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Maybe Teron Ward is a potential benching prospect.
Yeah, Teron Ward, I probably wouldn't start him either. So there you go. Austin Hooper, I think, is going to be another great play in daily, just because they seem to like to use him, and overall, you might have a chance against a better chance against Philadelphia with the tight end. I think that's the one place where they're not. No, actually, they're pretty good there, too. They only give up 4.5 points per game, so there's good defense there. But, again, Denver was a good defense. I mean, Denver was what Atlanta did to the Denver Broncos, who, by the way, are number one against receivers and number one against quarterbacks in the league. And yet still Atlanta came out and looked phenomenal. I think that said it all right there. I think this is one of those offenses that just is going to be very good, and you can start them all every week. Very impressed with Kyle Shanahan lately.
Yep. I mean, they went into Denver and played like they did, like you just mentioned. They went into Seattle and were able to put up points. So I think that they've proven that their offense is matchup proof, that they are going to be able to be productive regardless, and you can, feel a little more comfortable putting them in your lineup each and every week. Anything else from this one before we move on?
I think that's probably it for me.
All right, then we are going to move on to the LA Rams at the New York Jets. It looks like Ryan Fitzpatrick is probably going to be starting after suffering a partially sprained ligament in his knee. So I'm wondering what you think this is going to mean for one Brandon Marshall, who people have been very, very frustrated with recently. He has not been producing the way that everyone has expected him to, but from my viewpoint, he is so due that I think that this is probably going to be the game where he, gets back into everybody's good graces. I'm starting him everywhere. I have him. I've never considered benching him because of the ceiling that this guy has. Rams are 21st against wide receivers, so where their defense is strongest is against the run. They can be had in the secondary. So I am a big fan of Brandon Marshall this week. Kev, what say you?
I'm not a fan of Brandon Marshall this week, and it kind of hurts me because I like Brandon Marshall. I think he's phenomenal. He's been phenomenal. I don't like what's going on with him these days as far as that offense is concerned. I think that he's being double covered. I think that he's being overly, they're taking him out of the games on purpose because I think that you can afford to do that with them because of the other options in this offense, and because if you can take away, it seems to me, at least in this year, which is far different from last year, by the way, if you can take away Ryan Fitzpatrick's first read, he falls apart. He starts running around like a chicken with his head cut off and throws an interception. It seems to be his move. So everyone knows you can take away Brandon Marshall. You can pretty much, that to me, that's one of the reasons Matt Forte has had such a good season, is because they're literally just taking away Brandon Marshall because it's Fitzpatrick's security blanket. They're willing to give up the rushing yards to Forte and then tighten up when they get in the red zone to try and prevent the touchdown, and it's working. I mean that the Jets have been terrible, and look at Brandon Marshall's last 4 games. He had 70 yards back in week 6, and then 39, 68, 45, maxing out at 6 catches for 45 yards with 9 in week 9. So not great, and his catch rate is terrible. I don't know. I don't like what they're doing. I think defenses are keying on them, and it makes me nervous going forward. Now, having said that, the Rams aren't, the best defense in the league, but they're also not terrible. They come in at 17th against wide receivers, 24 points per game. So, basically middle of the pack there. So I don't, until I start to see him turn around. I mean, look, it's Brandon Marshall. You probably don't have better options, so you're probably starting him. But if you ask the question, am I nervous about it? I would say yes.
Yeah, he only has 2 games this season where he has 6 or more catches, and he only has 2 touchdowns so far in following the season last year where he had 14. I think we all thought he was going to regress there, that there was no way that he was going to have 14 again. But I think if you would have told us that he'd have 2 touchdowns after 9 weeks, we probably would have laughed at that. So I think that kind of turnaround is coming. He's getting a lot of red zone looks still, so I think that's one thing that is very helpful for him. And so although he has done bad, I'm keeping the faith, and he is going against me in Falafel this week, which means he is bound to score at least 20 points. So on the other side of the ball, I did notice that you are very, very much in love with Tavon Austin this week. So I want you to explain your man love for Tavon Austin.
I don't know. I really don't have an explanation for it. I do know that the Jets have not been good against the pass. They're and I shouldn't say that they're actually not terrible against passing in general. 20th against wide receivers for fantasy points this year with 25. But you watch them and you see the big plays and you see the ability. So. The ability for receivers to get behind some of the defensive backs and get into the secondary and have big plays. So I just think, I don't know. I keep going to expecting Tavon Austin to have big games and then he doesn't. So I'm probably wrong again. I'm not even gonna try and say that it's not entirely possible that he comes out with a dud again, because it seems to be what happens. He has so much talent and he has so much speed and so much athletic ability. You just look at him and you expect them to use it, and they don't. They just don't.
Yeah, he is underutilized, that's for sure.
I thought that he was going to have a good game against Carolina, who also has a banged-up secondary. And, of course, Carolina's played better since their bye week. But he has two targets, one catch for 17 yards, and I look like a jackass. So... it'll probably happen again this week.
Nah, you keep the faith. Keep the faith. If Todd Gurley sits, are you starting Benny Cunningham and feeling confident about it, knowing how good this Jets rush defense is?
No, probably not. They're definitely very good against the running backs, although not as good as you think. 18th right now, 18.1 points per game for fantasy against them. So they're not as good as you think they are, I guess. But they're also only giving up 686 yards. So in that respect, they come in at 12th against running backs. So it's the touchdowns that have killed them. And the actually through the air. They're giving up over 400 yards through the air, which is actually Benny Cunningham's specialty. He's a little bit more of a pass-catching back. So, there's a chance there if you're in a deep league and you need someone. If I had him in Falafel, I'd probably start him, of course. 16-team league where there's no running backs to be had, absolutely. But in normal 12 teams, probably not looking at him.
All right, anything else from here before we... press forward?
Nope. I think we should probably keep moving.
Yes, we should. Packers at the Titans. I think that this is going to be a sneaky, high-scoring game. Whenever Aaron Rodgers takes the field, I think there's always the possibility of that. My biggest concern, I guess, is if DeMarco Murray is going to be able to have the type of success that he's had this season against the legit Packers front seven. I think that with the type of volume that he gets, I think that he will be okay. But I do think that this is going to be a bigger Delaney Walker game. I feel that the Titans are going to be having to throw a lot to keep up with Green Bay. And my question for you, Kev, is going to be with Starks coming back this week at running back, likely to get a few carries. Don't know if he's necessarily going to take over. Do you think Aaron Rodgers owners are hoping that the Packers find their run game? Or do you think that they are happy with the type of production he's putting out without one?
Yeah, he's definitely looked better, right? Since they haven't had a run game. So I think I don't own Aaron Rodgers anywhere. But I think if I did, I'd be probably not looking forward to them getting a running back. When did we lose Lacey? You should know. He's your guy.
I believe he played week 4, or he had a bye week 4. And so I got to start him week 5, and then he was put on IR.
Right.
So yeah, there you go.
So week 6 against Dallas, wasn't a good game, but 7, 8, and 9, you have 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers, and then on top of that, he's rushing the ball a little bit, right? He's running. The last 2 games he's had combined 103 yards, 60 games in week 8, 60 yards in week 8, 43 yards in week 9. So he's getting you some extra points on the ground, which is great. I think if I were an owner, I would like that to continue.
Yep, I would agree. I am an owner in a few places, and I'm very happy with that. Are you worried about DeMarco Murray going against this Packers front line?
Yes, absolutely. I think when you look at what the Packers have done this year, only 550 yards on the ground, only 4 touchdowns, even less through the air for running backs. They are just a phenomenal defense against the run. And DeMarco Murray, a little banged up to begin with, still not sure if the toe is quite right. So, I mean, it looks, obviously he's going to play, but I would just be concerned all around. This is not a great matchup for him. And, you could see Antonio Andrews a little bit here in this game because of the injury and, trying to work through that. They might spell him a little more often than they normally would. Derrick Henry may be a long shot to play, so I'd keep an eye on that too. But definitely not a great matchup all around. I'd be a little nervous with that.
All right, I think we're starting all of your. Are you still starting Devontae Adams? Is he still in your good graces?
Yeah, he's okay. I mean, I think he's going to have good weeks. He's going to have bad weeks. That's pretty much what he does, right? Or at least that receiving role does. I mean, Jordy Nelson's clearly the guy in Green Bay. He's going to get the touchdowns. He gets the red zone looks. So Devontae Adams just he's almost got to break one in order to make it make it work for him. Have a great day. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at.
I would agree.
Where do we have Devontae Adams? Let's find that.
I was not very high.
It's not very high. I'm still scrolling here. 45th overall. You have him at 41. I have him at 47. So we are definitely not very high on Devontae Adams. Jordy Nelson, interestingly enough, a top 12 play for both of us.
Yep. The more that Randall Cobb comes back, the more I think he takes a little from Devontae Adams, and I think Ty Montgomery still continues to take a little bit from him. So that's just why I'm not as high on him. Although, if he puts up another solid game, that will have to start changing.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else from this one before we move on?
No, I think we're good to go.
All right. We will look forward to the Denver Broncos at the New Orleans Saints. So we will start.
I'm excited for this game, Steve.
This should be a very fun one. We will start in the Saints backfield, since that has been a highly touted question as of late. And so the question is Mark Ingram or Tim Hightower or both of them, because the Broncos defense in the last 5 weeks has been the 3rd worst rushing defense in the league. They have allowed 680 yards, which is the 3rd most, although in that time they have only allowed 4 touchdowns. And they've given up the most receiving yards to running backs over that span. So would you consider starting both New Orleans Saints running backs in this game?
I think you have to consider starting both, but look, I'm going to be. I think you can probably start both. It's a great matchup for them, as you mentioned. Just an overall Denver. Pretty much the only thing you can do is run against them. So you kind of have to start the running back, and with the split that you've seen for Hightower versus Ingram the last couple of games. Hightower is definitely getting a lot of run. My question is, do you think that ends at some point? And I unfortunately do. I think that we're all going to start getting into this mode where we start, both guys, and then all of a sudden it's going to be, back to the Mark Ingram show, and someone, somewhere along the line we're going to get screwed here. So this could be potentially that game. Obviously, you saw Ingram with a huge game last week against the worst rush defense in the league, the San Francisco 49ers. But Hightower was serviceable as well. So I don't know. I really don't know what to do with them. I think you got to roll them both out there if you have the opportunity. Given that most people are looking for running backs across leagues these days. So I'm starting him in starting both of them in Scott Fishbowl and hoping for the best.
All right, you are pretty low on the Saints wide receivers this week, and obviously for good reason, as the Broncos' pass defense is very good. Although it does not look that like Aqib Talib is going to be there again this week, and it looks like their third string quarterback might also miss some more time as well. So would that have any, would that make any difference for your rankings in terms of how you are looking at Brandon Cooks and Michael Thomas, and not so much Willie Snead anymore, who has disappeared?
Yeah, I think Snead's kind of off the radar right now with the emergence of Michael Thomas. I am very low on them. I should probably adjust both of them. You saw last week that Denver was a little more vulnerable without Talib in the lineup. And I think, they're not getting as much pressure on the quarterback either. So obviously, one of the best pass rushing teams in the league, but I think with Wolf out, is it right?
Derek Wolf, yep.
Yeah, Derek Wolf's going to miss this game as well. I think it just kind of hurts their overall, with him and Talib, it really changes the defense a little bit for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think that makes a huge difference in the passing game. Plus, I think I didn't factor in the at-home factor for the Saints in this one.
Yes.
I originally was very low on Drew Brees, and I'm still a lot lower than you. I have him at, 12, 11, I think, and you have him at 9, so I guess I'm not that much lower than you. But when you think about what they've done at home, and I think we've talked about it quite a bit, and so has plenty of other people, so I don't think we need to rehash it. But, yeah, I'm probably too low on them and need to kick them up a bit.
For the Broncos, I think you're starting Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. I think they've earned weekly starter status, even though Trevor Siemian has seemed to be holding them back a little bit. Just remember, if you look back, the game in Cincinnati, he was able to put up over 300 yards and threw for 4 touchdowns. So these games are in him, and I think that he is due for one. I think that he's going to have to score to keep up with the Saints in the Superdome. So I'm starting them. But for the running backs, do you think there's any chance that Kapri Bibbs out-touches Devontae Booker this week, for real, though?
No. I don't
Me
think
neither.
that's a chance. I think it's all hype. I think there's no chance at all, to be quite honest with you. I think Kapri Bibbs is a nice little player. But look, they drafted Booker. They like Booker. Booker has run well for the most part. And, Bibbs had a nice little catch and run in the last game. And maybe he did earn a couple of catches or a couple of shots coming out of the backfield or maybe a couple extra runs, but I think Booker's going to be the guy. He will be on the field for the majority of the game, and I think he's the one you want. And this is just a great matchup for him. So I like to see him in this one. Running backs, Saints second to last, just ahead of the 49ers. Actually, it's not even just ahead. They're still well ahead of the 49ers. The 49ers are just that bad. But yeah, they still not a great overall defense against running backs. So get Booker in there.
Get him in there. Anything else from this one?
Nope. Let's move along.
All right, we move to the Chiefs at the Carolina Panthers, and Spencer Ware is coming back this week, but I don't know if he should be as an instant starter as everyone else might assume. Going up against the Panthers' run defense over the last 4 games ranks second in fewest points allowed to fantasy running backs. They've only allowed 248 yards in those 4 games combined, and those include games against David Johnson and Todd Gurley. You may have heard of those guys. They're pretty good. Have allowed 0 rushing touchdowns in those 4 games. And then on the flip side, you've got Carolina, the second worst against wide receivers, allowing 7 touchdowns in 4 games. So I don't know if I'm as confident in starting Spencer Ware this week. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not really that confident in starting Spencer Ware. I think that the Carolina defense has certainly, I don't know what they did on their bye week to kind of get themselves right, but they certainly did a good job of it. They're playing much better football, and they're definitely defending the run like they used to. I think you still where's this? I mean, if he's out there, you're going to start him because he's got the potential. But I just would temper my expectations of him this week, I should say.
On the Panthers side of the ball, you've got the Chiefs are also a top 10 rush defense in the last 5 weeks, also with 0 touchdowns allowed. Are you very confident starting Jonathan Stewart this week?
I like Jonathan Stewart. I have him at 17th. You have him at 13th, so I'm a little lower than him. I do think he's an RB2 like he normally would be. The Chiefs definitely doing a good job against running backs, and overall, so not a great matchup. Plus, the Carolina offensive line is banged up and hasn't looked great, so that makes me a little nervous. But at the same time, I think I think Jonathan Stewart's just a good player, and I think they're trying to use him in the goal line more. I think they're trying to keep Cam from slamming his head into other players, but not doing a great job of it. But they are at least trying to get Jonathan Stewart some additional red zone looks just to prevent that, and I think you'll continue to see that. So he's got a decent shot at a touchdown.
I would agree there. And then Cam, Greg Olsen, Kelvin Benjamin, those guys are all in your lineup. I mentioned how bad Carolina's pass defense was. One reason I did that is because I think Tyreek Hill is a interesting play this week. Jeremy Maclin has basically been ruled out of this game already, so there's going to be some extra targets to go around, and he is a very exciting player. I know we've talked about him a lot the last few weeks on this podcast, so I think that he's somebody that if you need a fill-in for this week, that is someone that could definitely do that. Do you have anything else to add on this one before we move on?
Did you rank Hill?
Did I rank Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
No, I ranked Jeremy Maclin because I thought Jeremy Maclin was going to be playing, and so I don't know if Tyreek Hill made it, but I think he might have. He might have.
No, I don't see him here, so he wasn't top 50 anyway. So
no, he was in there. You deleted him though.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
sure.
Makes perfect sense. Let's move along.
All right, moving on to the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. My question for you, Kev, is Chris Ivory back? He had 18 rush attempts last week, by far the most of the season. It does seem that the new offensive coordinator does want to run the ball a little bit more. Houston, 7th most points allowed to running backs in the last 5, averaging over 100 yards per game. So I don't think that the Texans are going to be running away with this one. So do you think that Chris Ivory is going to be a serviceable back this week and going forward for the rest of the season?
Do I have to answer that?
I would prefer if you did.
Oh, yeah, I don't know the answer to the question, which is why I don't want to answer it. I think that, I mean, no, man, sucks. I don't think so. I don't know that he's a guy that you're going to count on getting that kind of production every week. I certainly don't think you're going to see 100 yards every week. He didn't get, he's only gotten the end zone once this year. And so I don't know how much you can trust him. I don't know what Jacksonville will do with their split versus, him and TJ Yeldon. And I don't think anyone can really guess at that. So to me, how do you want to play these guys, right?
Yeah, it's a rough one.
It's just not one of those. It's, it reminds me of the wide receiver situation in, say Tennessee, where you just, they have some guys that could be valuable fantasy options, but you never know which one is going to pop. Or I think we've talked about it a lot with San Diego wide receivers. Same thing. Like you just don't have an idea of who's going to do what. And the way that they've used these running backs in Jacksonville is similar to that. You just don't know who's going to get the carries. I mean, Yeldon's the one that scored last week. So who knows?
Nobody does.
That's right.
Except for I'd like to think that I do.
Well, so what are you doing then?
I think that the way this guy seemed to, I mean, I know it's only been one game, and I think game flow obviously does matter, but he did get these 18 rush attempts in a game that the Jaguars were losing for most of the time. So typically what we've seen in the past is that as soon as Jacksonville gets down by even a field goal, they ditch the run game altogether, and then they rely on Blake Bortles for some stupid reason to try and bring him back. So I think that this guy might just have a little more patience and just give him a little more opportunity. Now, they aren't very
You're
good.
just a Tusk lover. You're just a Tusk lover.
I do love the Tusk. But it seems like he might be in for a little bit more work. We will just have to see what happens going forward. DeAndre Hopkins. I'm all in on DeAndre Hopkins this week. Jaguars 14th worst versus wide receivers. Are you ready to start loving DeAndre Hopkins again?
I would love to love DeAndre Hopkins.
It would be nice.
This is the matchup, right? I mean, if he can't do it here, then you know what the worst part is? It's not him. It's not DeAndre Hopkins. I love DeAndre Hopkins anyway because he has to deal with Brock Osweiler as a quarterback. It'll be so much better when he's on a better team next year.
Oh, man. All right. Anything else from this Houston-Jacksonville game that should just be an absolute thriller?
Yeah, I think I'm not too looking forward to this one. This is one of the few on the schedule that I do not expect great things from.
All right, then we shall move on to the final 1 o'clock game, and that is the Minnesota Vikings at the Washington football team. Two teams trending in opposite directions. You got the Vikings, who started off so hot, lost their last few games, and then Washington, who just headed into the bye after tying a game in London against the Bengals, but they've been looking a lot better, especially on offense. So, Kev, my question to you, is there anyone on the Vikings offense worth starting outside of Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph this week?
Do you know who the worst team in the league is at scoring points?
I'm going to go ahead and say the Vikings.
Yeah, it is the Minnesota Vikings, 32nd in the NFL in points scored at 126. That's not good. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that, so I appreciate you telling me.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. It's very not good, and so no, I don't think that any of them are worth starting in this one. I just, Bradford has looked terrible lately, and even Diggs is gonna, he got a lot of targets last week, but it still wasn't the greatest game. I mean, except for the fact that he caught 13 passes.
Yeah, 13 catches for like 80 yards or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean that was good if you were in a PPR league, but if you're in a standard league, that's 8 points. That's not good.
Yeah, that's not great.
So I mean, Rudolph only gets one catch and then the touchdown. You got to wonder if his usage is going to be down now with Norv Turner a little bit. Or not a little bit. He is gone.
A little bit gone.
He's a little bit gone. No, he is gone. Norv Turner obviously historically has been a big tight end guy, so maybe their philosophy under Pat Shurmur is going to be a little different, and they're not going to use him as much. He did get the score, but I don't know. I don't like anyone on this offense.
Yep, I would agree there. I do like a lot of people on the Washington offense, but I don't know if I like a ton of them this week outside of Jordan Reed. With Deshaun Jackson looking doubtful so far, it does boost up Jamison Crowder and Pierre Garçon just a little bit. But I actually think that this is a game where the Vikings get right. Their defense is going to turn it on. So I like Jordan Reed this week. Not a huge fan of all the other Washington players. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not. An interesting note came out today that Gruden is saying that Rob Kelly's definitely the starter, and there was some talk that Matt Jones could even be a healthy scratch. Talk about a fall from grace there, but
that's crazy.
He's the most talented guy there too. I mean, you see it. It's just he can't hold on to the ball to save his life. But no, I mean. I think Minnesota definitely gets back on track with their defense a little bit in this one. I could see it being a rough game overall for the Washington offense. I think Deshaun Jackson's, in jeopardy of missing this game as well. So that even further hurts them overall. Where did we have Cousins? I think you were higher on Cousins than I was.
Maybe just a little bit, but it wasn't by much. I wasn't super high on him.
13th for you, 19th for me. So just outside of starting range for you, and I'm definitely a little bit further down on him. But I just don't see this being a great game.
I would agree. So let's not talk about it anymore.
Okay.
All right, we will head into the afternoon games. The Miami Dolphins at the San Diego Chargers. Had you told me in August that this game would feature two top 10 fantasy running backs, and that in the last 5 weeks, these two running backs were actually top 3 fantasy running backs, I would have found a way to slap you, Kev. I would have
Slap
found
me?
a way to slap you.
What would
But
you do?
that
Like,
is-
pay my wife to do it, or I mean, how would that work?
Well,
I mean,
we don't
you're
have to
so
talk about
far
that.
away.
You didn't tell me, so we don't have to worry about
We are
those types
literally
of things
on
anymore.
opposite sides of the country.
That's true. It would have been impressive.
It would have been impressive. I'll give you that. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
So yeah, we have Jay Ajayi and Melvin Gordon. These guys have been nothing short of impressive the last few weeks. Melvin Gordon's been great all season, but the Chargers, they don't give up a ton of yards to running backs, but they do give up a lot of touchdowns. They give up 11 rushing touchdowns so far this season. And Miami, they're the opposite. They have given up less than 80 rushing yards only 2 times this season, but they don't give up a lot of rushing touchdowns. So in a game where both of these defenses don't necessarily scare you, and one of their offenses, Miami, doesn't really impress you too much, what are you looking for from this game? This game is weird to me.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be weird. I think it's interesting because I think it's going to be one of those games that's really slow to start off with, and then it's going to get a lot more aggressive as towards the end of the game. I think both teams are going to start off trying to run the ball quite a bit. Obviously, we have Jay Ajayi at 11 and 9 respectively, and then we also have Melvin Gordon. Both of us have him at 4. So we're pretty high on both of these guys for a reason. I think you're going to see a lot of running the ball. I just don't know if they'll end up scoring. And as towards the end of the game, you could see that sort of flip because of that. They'll start to pass a little bit more and sort of get things going. So that's kind of what I see happening. I think this will be a slow game. I don't know if there'll be a lot of points on the board, but definitely a great matchup for both running backs.
Do you think Hunter Henry has become an afterthought for this season?
Yeah, probably. I mean, Antonio Gates, look, we thought or at least I thought coming into this game that Antonio Gates was going to have a good season. He's looking to break the tight end touchdown record. He looked like he finished the season well last year. So overall, it just looked like it was setting up for him to have a great season. And then Hunter Henry came out of nowhere. Obviously a talented guy, very athletic, but the injuries have slowed him down. And I think it's probably going to be Antonio Gates' show for the majority of the season now.
I would agree. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about with the Dolphins and Chargers?
No, overall, I mean, you're probably starting Phillip Rivers, but you're definitely not starting Ryan Tannehill.
No, he has proven yet again that he cannot be trusted.
No, he's
Tried to tell everybody.
I officially hate Ryan Tannehill.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. He's not good.
No, he's terrible at football. He should go back to being a receiver. Maybe that would work.
Yep, I would agree. Probably work out a little better. So we will talk about the 49ers losing to the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. I would say start your Cardinals. Hell, I'd even start Michael Floyd this week. Just kidding. I wouldn't start him. He sucks. So don't start Michael Floyd. But I'd start every other Cardinal that you can get your hands on because
what's funny is I thought you said you would start your Uncle Floyd.
Oh, no, I don't have an Uncle Floyd that I know of.
But no, you said Michael Floyd, not your uncle.
If I did, I'd start him over Michael Floyd.
Yeah, I would too. Uncle Floyd should definitely start over Michael Floyd.
That's right. So I'm starting. I mean, I don't have much to say about the Cardinals. I think you start Palmer, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, J.J. Nelson, and John Brown. I think you get all those guys in there. And for the 49ers, I think you're going to be starting DeJuan Harris because I don't think Carlos Hyde's going to make it for this week. And I think that's just about it. I can't trust anyone else on the 49ers offense other than the running back who seems to get work regardless of game flow. So what else do you see from this game that you're having trouble with, Kev?
No trouble. Is it possible that David Johnson has the greatest fantasy football game for a running back of all time?
Absolutely.
Is it possible? I think it's possible. I think we could see record-breaking numbers from him in this one. And I posed this question in our chat, and I'll ask you again here because I think there are people that might care about this. In DFS, do you have to start David Johnson? Because, I mean, you know everyone's going to play him. So obviously, in cash games, you're probably going to do it. But in a GPP, you still have to start him, I think, right? Even though everyone's going to do it, you have to.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you don't start him, you're going to get left behind because of all the people that are going to be starting him who are going to foot that bill, and because of what he's going to be able to do against them. So yeah, he's one of not the typical play. He's the expensive guy you have to buy to make sure you can keep pace with everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like J.J. Nelson quite a bit in this. The San Francisco 49ers, as terrible as they are against running backs, they're also pretty terrible against wide receivers, 28th in the league, giving up 26.6 points per game. So definitely, I think, as you mentioned, John Brown's a great play. J.J. Nelson's a guy that I think is a good DFS option. And if you can, he should be owned in every league at this point, but definitely a good guy to throw in for this one. I don't really like anyone too much on the San Francisco 49ers side, to be quite honest with you. Not that the matchup's overly terrible, but they're not talented at all.
Yep, that is an accurate assessment of that football team.
Mm-hmm.
So we will move on to one of my favorite games from this weekend. We have the Dallas Cowboys at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Definitely a good game.
Oh, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be so fun. We have the Steelers. They allowed the 6th most points to running backs in the last 5 weeks, where the Cowboys are allowing the 3rd least amount of points. So that would, typically say that Ezekiel Elliott is going to have a huge game and Le'Veon Bell is not going to have a very big game. Both of these guys rank in the top 7 in fewest points allowed to quarterbacks. And then Dallas is 19th against wide receivers. Pitt is 7th against wide receivers. I read a bunch of defensive stats to ask, is there any chance you sit anybody from these games that are your typical fantasy starters?
No. You're playing absolutely everyone in this game. And you know what? The Cowboys have been pretty good defensively overall. I think they've been a lot better than people think from a defensive standpoint. But it doesn't matter. You're starting Roethlisberger, especially at home, hoping to have it bounce back after last week where, it was first week back after an injury and on the road. He obviously plays better at home, and he should be a little bit more healthy this time. And then, you're going to sit Antonio Brown or Lev Bell. I mean, come on. So you're starting those guys. You're probably starting everyone. I can't think of anyone you're not going to start in this game. I told you earlier this week, I think it was, that I said that I'm starting to get a little nervous with Des Bryant. I could see his season going poorly the rest of the way. So he's a guy, but again, you're still going to start him. I think you still have to throw him out there until such time that it's been many weeks in a row where you see him struggling. But I'm definitely down on him. I have him at 25. You have him at 13. So I'm certainly. I'm wavering on him a little bit. So there you go. There's one guy.
Would it help you knowing that he's also going against me in Falafel this week?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to kick him up then.
Yep. And move
put
him
at
up a little
3,
bit.
maybe. Just based on that knowledge alone.
That's right. All right. Very quickly. Ladarius Green looks like he might play this week.
Oh, yes.
Don't start him.
Yes.
Do not start him this week. Give it some time to ferment and for them to gel and get some chemistry. I'm very excited that he's back.
3 touchdowns.
Do not start him this week. Dallas is 2nd against tight ends.
He's not a good start. It's not a good. Yeah. It's not. Don't do it. But having said that, I'm excited, Steve. This is the best time to talk about it. Sal's not here. He can't mock us.
I'll tell you what. As fun as this would be, it's much more fun with things like how well Matt Forte is doing so far this year when he is here to talk about those things.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? I really do hope that Ladarius Green comes out and shows us exactly what we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season. And then, of course, Sal will just say, well, I only said that because of injuries. I thought he wasn't going to play. we know what'll happen, Sal. We know. We're
That's
aware.
Right. All right, we've got to move on. Sunday night.
I should have done that in a New York accent. I totally missed it on that.
Missed opportunities.
Yep.
Set it up for next time.
All right.
Seahawks at the Patriots. Kev, you will be at this game.
I will be there.
Oh, I hate Seattle so much.
Yeah,
I
me
really
too.
do. I hate them.
Gonna
Things
be
were
great.
so much simpler back when Marshawn Lynch was there and when he was healthy.
Yep.
Simpler times. Simpler times.
It was
anyway,
good when you knew exactly what was going to happen with their offense, right? They were going to run the ball. You could start Marshawn Lynch, and you didn't have to worry about anyone else.
Yep, absolutely. So with the performance from Russell Wilson on Monday night, you have to ask, is he back? Because he looked better. Still, he got the rushing touchdown, but there aren't any rushing numbers to go along with this season. So with him, still not as mobile as he should be. The Patriots, we all know that they game plan for the offense's best player, which right now looks like Jimmy Graham. So who can you trust on this Seattle offense, especially with what happened with Christine Michael's usage on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably start Russell Wilson. I think he'll be fine in this game. I do think, like you said, the Patriots do a great job of taking out an individual performer. That's their. I mean, why the rest of the league hasn't caught on to do this, I'm not sure, but that has been their motive. Their method of operation for a long time now. They take out one guy and make you beat them with someone else. Jimmy Graham, I think you're right. He will be that guy. So I would temper my expectations for Jimmy Graham this week. But I think that you can still, Russell Wilson will still be able to probably score a couple of touchdowns in this one because I actually think they're going to be behind. I like the Patriots now. I'm a bias, obviously. We all know that, but I do like the Patriots to get out ahead a little early in this one. A home game, night game, Sunday night. Brady's second start at home this season against a former Super Bowl opponent. They're going to come in pumped up for this one. I think they're going to get out to a lead, and Seattle's going to be playing catch up most of the game. This could be a very high scoring game.
That's interesting. Very high scoring. You just don't hear those things very often with Seattle's defense. But, I mean, with New England's offense, you could absolutely see it. I'm just looking forward to it. I'm pretty sure this is the first time they've played since the Super Bowl. So this game is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. Are you going to be starting any Patriots wide receivers in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to start Edelman. I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm certainly going to start him.
I was just going to say why.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he's a wide receiver too, right? You're going to start him as a wide receiver too, because I think you probably don't have a better option on your roster for someone to throw in there. Not a great matchup, obviously, but Seattle's not. I don't know. Someone's gonna score touchdowns in this offense. It's probably going to be Gronk, but I think Edelman could start to turn it around here. Right? He's got to at some point. But the interesting thing for me in this game is Dion Lewis. Will Dion Lewis come back? I mean, it looks like he's practicing this week. He could be activated. They deactivated Tyler Gaffney, which
that's a nice word for cut.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they demoted him, right? So it's not really.
I thought I already got cut.
Well, he got cut, and then they'll sign him to the practice squad because he's not going anywhere. But to me, that's a sure sign that they're looking towards activating Dion Lewis. So the question is, do you start him? I think he's going to be eased in. I think you're going to see both him and James White, but there is that little potential for him to come back and just be what he was. There's a chance.
Does it change your mind that he's probably going to be starting against me in Falafel this week?
Oh, yes. There you go. See? I knew it.
God, I'm just going to get steamrolled by the most unlikely of lineups this week. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, it's not going to be very good for you.
As is my life in Falafel this year.
1-9 sounds good, though. It sounds catchy.
It does have a ring to it.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, right? You'll be okay.
I can't. All right, anything else from this? We must move on.
I don't think so. I think that's probably it. Yeah, I think we covered it.
All right, I'll just add this. Start Tom Brady. Okay, Monday night.
Oh,
yep.
Man. I almost
missed that one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
That's good.
Gotcha. Picking up your slack.
Yeah.
All right. Monday night, Cincinnati at the New York Giants. These two teams actually kind of have a lot in common to me.
Yep.
They both have a very frustrating quarterback. Each of them have a stud wide receiver one. Each of them have a rookie wide receiver that's projected to be pretty good in the future. Both of them are underachieving halfway through the season, and both of them have a backfield that is hard to get a good grasp on. So, what are you looking at from this game? This should be a high scoring game. I think this is going to be a fun one, and I think that you can pretty much pick and choose your options that you're going to start from this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another game where you're probably going to start the majority of your regulars, right? I mean, you're starting AJ Green, you're starting Odell Beckham, no question about that. You're probably starting both Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. The Giants haven't been terrible against the running backs. They're pretty much middle of the pack, giving up for yardage and 16.9 points per game. So pretty much middle of the pack there as well for fantasy running backs. So you can probably comfortably start both of those guys. And then, might be a little bit more of a Jeremy Hill game as they do a decent job of defending the pass for running backs. So, I think that you're starting those guys. The real question, Steve, is what is going to happen with the Giants' backfield?
I was actually just going to ask you the same thing. Oh. As the week goes on, I am getting more and more pumped up with the Paul Perkins hype train.
Yeah.
I think I'm all aboard. I think I'm picking up Paul Perkins where I can. I think that he looks like the better back in New York. They had before, they were using Perkins a lot. They were using Rashad Jennings as the first and second down back, and we're bringing Bobby Rainey in as the passing down back. But they can use Paul Perkins to do both of those things. So I think that they're going to start giving him more and more touches. I think that you're going to want to pick him up before this weekend because I think he's got a good chance of having his blow-up game on Monday night. And at that point, everybody's going to want to get their hands on him. So I would be looking to add Paul Perkins in all my leagues right now because I think this is the game where he really takes over that role.
Yeah, here's the problem with Paul Perkins. The Giants are second to last in rushing attempts this year. Only 171 rushing attempts on the year, only a 3.2 yards per carry average. Obviously, that's a product of how terrible they've been, but it would just I agree with you. I think Perkins is the more talented guy. I think they should start working him in more and more, and he will eventually take over and potentially be that lead back. And as we all know in fantasy, it's all about opportunities. So as a guy you want to grab, definitely. I would just be careful about throwing him out there unless you have to because they just don't run the ball that much.
Yeah, I definitely would not be like dropping Theo Riddick for Paul Perkins by any means. I mean, but I'm sure everyone's got someone at the end of their bench that is droppable, someone that they could rotate in for a stash guy like him for an opportunity at an RB, a starting running back for a team. So
absolutely,
I'm excited for him indeed.
Great. I agree with you there. I think that probably wraps it up for us, Steve. I think we've done all that we can do with these games.
All right, and I only broke a minor sweat.
Nice. Good work. We'll have to work harder next time, but until then, why don't you get to a finishing thought?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out and listening to the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can find us there at Falafel House. You can like our Facebook page and find us on Instagram. Just search for Falafel House and go to our website, falafelhouse.com. Daily articles coming out, all kinds of good stuff, including a betting article by myself and Dead Duck. So, check that out, falafelhouse.com. And be sure to tune in for Sunday, where the return of Sal will be sure to make your ears very happy. Kev, what do you got?
I just want to remind everyone that you can follow us all on Twitter as well. You can follow Steve as @SidSkeet, and you can follow myself as @WallyCentral. You can follow Sal as @LitoSal. We all have some pretty good stuff going on Twitter. And I would like to remind you that if you go to my Twitter page and check out some of my tweets, I'll actually pin this tweet. But I'm trying to get a tweet. Did you see the tweet about the Mickey Mouse voice, Steve?
I did not.
So I tweeted out to everyone that if we can get 100 likes or retweets of a particular tweet of mine for the last podcast that we did, that Sal will do the entire next episode in the Mickey Mouse voice.
Interesting. Are you sure that will not be deterring people from
listening?
listening or retweeting or liking that tweet?
No, I think that why wouldn't you want to do that? Don't you want to hear him do that?
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely love it.
I think it'd be
So,
great.
yeah.
So anyway,
All right, that is great.
Anyway, get out there and like and retweet that tweet just because I want to have to listen to it because I won't even be here. So that's the best part of it. He will have to do it, and I will get to listen to it, and it will be great. Until then, we also just another quick reminder: we do love reviews. If you go to iTunes and post a review of us, good or bad, preferably good, we would definitely appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. And we will be back. As I mentioned, I will not be there because I will be at the Patriots game. Maybe I'll call in, Steve, from the Patriots game to tell Falafel how much I love it. So you will hear Steve and Sal on Monday morning when you wake up. Until then, Steve, hit the button.